Welcome to the first episode of Mind Mapping History. Today we're going to look at the Catilinarian Conspiracy. Why? Because we want to understand what happens when republics are attacked from within. What happens when you have citizens plotting against their own state. That happened in Rome and in about 63 years before Jesus Christ. So let's understand the context and the causes of this, starting with the political climate. So this is the late Republic, right? So the Republic has been on for close to 500 years by then, was very successful. And actually, that success contributed to the end of the Republic. And we're going to try to touch on some of this today. The other political climate that we have in the time is there are some aristocrats or patricians, that is they're calling Rome, that had suffered tremendous electoral defeats. So there is this theory that sometimes the number of people in the upper classes grow to a point that there's not enough places for all of them in the structures of power. In this case, Catiline, which was a patrician, he was defeated 3 times in his pursuit to be consul, which is the highest honor in the political republic, in the Roman political structure. They had 2 consuls a year, and he lost 3 times. And then he got tired of it. He said, let's go ahead and take the power with our own hands. Finally, you have the economic crisis and the debt issue, right? So by then, Rome was very successful, but that success led to concentration of wealth and the competition of using enslaved people that were coming from the regions that were being conquered by Rome, to what today is Spain, Egypt, North Africa, and Algeria, and the Middle East, and Greece too. So what was the coalition that tried to break the state and take power? On one side, you have disaffected aristocrats. As I mentioned, Catiline was one of them. People that had big names but no money or no political power. On the other side, you have the Sullan veterans. Now, Sulla was this leader of the first civil war, and we can do another mind map on him for sure. And he promised his veterans 2 things: land and money. And they got land, but veterans sometimes, they're good with swords, but not with plows. They're not great farmers. So they end up going back to Rome, and they're itching for a fight. And then you have dispossessed farmers. So the farmers actually had to compete now with these big landowners who now could get slaves populations from those places where Rome was conquering with military victories. So on one side, you have the motivations of this include political rejection, the resentment of the aristocrats that failed to get power. You have people pressuring for erasure of debts, because during that time there was a debt crisis as well. And then you had this idea of why not take the power with a coup and promote these causes of debt erasure, of giving money to those veterans and power to these aristocrats. So the key figures of this conspiracy, of course, on one side you have the conspirators, chief among them, Catiline or Catilina in Latin. So Catilina is this. He has a bad reputation. He was leading this movement based on the fact that he had lost elections. He was not a popular guy with most of the people. He had two fellow aristocrats that joined him. One called Sura and the other Syntagus. Did the same crowd, same type of people. And then, of course, you have the Republic defenders, led by none other than Marcus Tullius Cicero, probably the greatest orator that ever lived. Cicero was not a patrician. He was not an aristocrat. He was not Roman. He was a noble. He was a new man. A new man in Rome was a man with not a fancy family that had consuls in it, but through the sheer power of his intellect, his oratory skills, he He became a very successful lawyer, politician, and statesman, and he was finally elected to be consul that year. And then on the other side, you have Cato the Younger. Cato is a fascinating figure. He is the great-grandchild of Cato the Elder, who is the guy famous for Carthago delenda est. So that's Cato the Elder. This is Cato the Younger. Cato is this Stoic figure, admired by his kind of virtuous life and being very Stoic. He is a famous Stoic, but he was pretty admired by his attitude of no compromise. You have to follow the law. You have to obey the tradition. So he was one of those figures. And then you have Antonius. Antonius was the consul with Cicero. Remember, the consuls were elected 2 at a time, and he was the consul with Cicero that year. So then what happens? Let's go to the main events of this. How was it discovered? Interesting enough, there was a woman in Rome called Fulvia. Fulvia had a lover who was part of the conspiracy. The lover was broke. As I said, most of them were broke. And he kept bragging to her that, no, let's stay together because as soon as we get power, I'll take a lot of money and I'll be wealthy. So he was bragging about this to her. It was a secret plan, man. So she goes and tells Cicero's wife about this. Hey, I heard that there is this conspiracy going on. Cicero needed proof. That proof came in the form of a letter. This letter was sent to Crassus. Now, Crassus is the wealthiest man in Rome. Is a famous character. We're going to see Crassus, Pompey, and Caesar form the first triumvirate in about 5 years. But then he gets this letter saying, man, get out of town. It's going to be trouble. There's going to be a lot of people killed. There's going to be a coup. So Crassus, and then in the letter says, by the way, the number one target is going to be Cicero, the consul. Cicero gets the letter. He calls a meeting of the Senate, and he convinces them to pass what's called the Senatus Consultum Ultimatum, which is basically martial law. It's declaring a state of emergency, gives the consuls extra power, and he goes to work on that. He then does his first oration, which is a speech in which he accuses Catiline to Catiline's face. Catiline is in the Senate. And this is the famous painting that you see everywhere. If you just Google Cicero, Catiline, or Roman senator, you're going to find that painting, this famous painting of Cicero kind of pointing to Catiline, Catiline all by himself on one side of the painting, kind of dark figure, and Cicero doing his oration, which basically says, you a crook. You're trying to destroy us. You're trying to take power because you cannot win a damn election. So shame on you, basically. How did they crush this? Was with the help of some double agents. So Catiline didn't have a lot of men. I mean, he did not have an army, right? The army was part of the state. So they had to recruit people. So they tried to recruit these Gallic tribes. You know, Gauls are those tribes that live kind of north of Italy in what today is France. And they tried to recruit one of those tribes. Those tribes realized, man, it's better for me to stay on the side of Rome than on the side of these conspirators here. So they go and tell Cicero that there is this conspiracy going on. Cicero uses them to get letters. So quick note to people doing conspiracies, don't put that in writing, right? So don't text or email your secret conspiracy plans. So they arrest those conspirators that are still in town. By then, Catiline, he's gone. He went north to join his troops that are gathering on north of Florence. So the Senate then has to debate what to do with these 5 senators that were part of this conspiracy that are right there. Cicero goes for the death penalty. Julius Caesar, who is about 20 years Cicero's junior, argues for life in prison. Says it's going to be a bad precedent, man, if we start to execute Roman citizens without a trial. And of course, the Senate is divided between Caesar and Cicero. Cato gets in the middle. Cato is this stoic, follow the rules. We gotta follow the ancient traditions of Rome, which is tough. We are tough people. We are going to kill these people that are trying to take the power away from us. So he convinces the Senate to actually do summary executions. Cicero, as the consul, takes those 5 guys. He takes them to the prison. This horrible, called the Tullianum prison, is an underground prison in ancient Rome, in where executions are made. And it's pretty awful. He takes those 5 guys there. They're executed. Cicero comes back, tells the crowd, they lived. Basically, that's all that he says. They lived. They're not alive anymore. So the military conclusion of this mess is about 6 months later. The Senate sent legions to crush this army that is gathering there north of Florence in a city called Pistoria, which still can visit today. In 62 BC, there is this battle of Pistoria. The Catiline army is completely crushed by the legions. You remember, the legions at this moment are the most deadly professional army in all of ancient Europe and North Africa and Middle East. So they get crushed. Catiline dies in battle. The Romans do recognize that he died bravely, but they say that it was a bravery that was worthy of a better cause. So they say that he dies there. And then, of course, how do we look at this today? A couple of thoughts. First, the ancient sources are very biased. The major source we have is Cicero's Orations, which is basically saying Catiline is a crook and a criminal. And then you have another ancient text by Sallust, who is basically, his source is Cicero. So basically a lot of bias and demonization. The modern historians today look at this and think there's a bit of exaggeration on Cicero's part, probably trying to get some self-promotion. And the people do question the constitutional process of doing summary executions of Roman citizens. Of course, Cicero's political fate is interesting. It's very tied to this whole conspiracy. In the beginning, he is recognized as the savior of the republic. He gets the title of patria, which is father of his country. But then, when the tide turns and the other party comes into power, he is exiled, actually, for those illegal executions. Eventually, he becomes the symbol of the republic. Cicero is the voice of this republic. The republic, as I said, I think in the beginning, is going to last for another 20 years or so. And Cicero is going to be part of that story too, which is probably going to be another mind map. But if you like this, give it a like. Put in a comment what other mind map you want to see. If I'm trying to do Rome first. But thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day and see you later.